Fan noise too loud?
It's fine.
Okay.
So I'm sharing my screen. So if you can add yourself to the chat, that would be great. I'll get that in there. Or if you can add yourself as an attendee, that would be great. And today I thought we could spend a little bit of time kind of talking about agenda setting for this meeting and things that people would like to get out. I think we've been spending quite a bit of time kind of just recapping what's been going on in the CHAOSS project, and which is fine. We can definitely spend time doing that.
Kind of like the last 2 weeks with John Oliver.
What's that?
It's kind of like the last 2 weeks with John Oliver, like a television program where we
I don't
kind
know
of
that program, but
it's last week with John Oliver. Last week tonight. It's a
okay.
HBO
Yeah,
series.
So do we want to? I mean, the question is, do we want to spend time kind of recapping what's going on in the project, right? Like kind of spending time just keeping you up to date with the things that have been happening, or do we want to kind of originate things in this call that we can bring to the CHAOSS project as well? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I think, for example, I think some of the discussions that have occurred around inner sourcing on this call have relevance beyond the Asia Pacific region.
So do we want to like spend time in this call, like thinking through issues of inner sourcing? Daniel will come next week. He's still on holiday, right? Or
August. It's August. He's in Europe. He's probably still on holiday.
yeah. So in 2 weeks, he'll be here in 2 weeks. But do we want to start making concerted efforts in this call to really build out how we think about inner sourcing? I'm open to anybody, to any thoughts here.
Hi, Matt.
Yeah, hey.
This is William.
Hey.
I think we just asked a bunch of my colleagues. I asked them to join the meeting, so maybe it's good for you guys to introduce about the CHAOSS project and. Maybe the metrics we could use to monitor the health of the open source project. Okay. I think these metrics could be very helpful if we use it in the source. Especially currently we just start the process to have some projects we try the inner source we try the open source ways to attract contributors. So maybe you guys can share the metrics that can help us to monitoring the development of the community.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. No, that's super helpful. So metrics that can help kind of monitor. Would this be, Willem? Would this be the growth of the community from external contributors or contributors internal to the organization?
I think it's an internal organization, but as you know, the project may maintained by certain kinds of apartments, but okay. The other apartment, just like the external contributor, okay. We can get the data, detailed data of the who is who, just the contribution come from, well, the contributor is come from. But
Okay.
at first, the most challenging things is we need to encourage them to do the contribution. But
Okay.
in the inner source world, they may not have the motivations to do that kind of work.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's a lot about, if you, I don't know, can you see my screen? So metrics that help monitor the growth of communities internal to the organization.
Yeah.
And this would be across various departments, is the way I understood it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else? Metrics for?
I think the metrics for the project development is good enough.
Okay.
Because we can use the Gremlin Lab or Argos to get the data from the GitLab. We use the GitLab internally to host the project. So I think it's just work out of box. But first, the most interesting things is bring more people online on board.
Okay. Still gonna jot this down.
When it comes to bringing people on board, is this call a helpful? Certainly, it's a helpful start. Are there other kinds of things that you think would aid in bringing people on board?
Currently, I think a lot of people don't have the experience working with the open source project. So now I do a lot of things to help them to know what's going on on the open source world. So to just help them to know how to write the README documentation, how to encourage people to do the MR things. So basically, it's just teach them the way we usually do in GitHub or using Git to collaborate.
Gotcha. Okay. I think this would be a great place to start with the goal of trying to, Willem, is it to grow the communities or is it to?
Yeah, grow the community, but it's like we have a bunch of projects needs to be take care of, and so certain kinds of tools can help us. So I play with the Gremlin Lab for a while, so I think that the data I get from the GitLab is enough, but to encourage people to join the process is a huge challenge for me.
Okay, so to me, and Sean or anybody can chime in, but to me, what the metrics can provide when we talk through what that kind of achieving that goal is, what the metrics can provide is kind of insights as to the current state of affairs and then how that state of affairs changes over time. And we could use the metrics to kind of understand how different initiatives internal to the organization impact changes in community growth.
Yeah.
Okay. And so so just to your, Sean, I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay. Because one of the things that we see quite a bit, Willem, is like, we'll see in an open source sense, not in an inner source sense, but we'll see kind of spikes in community engagement around things like conferences. We'll see spikes in engagement around things like releases. So we know that there's events that can occur that kind of change the nature of participation in the community. And so we could, using the metrics, we can kind of track what those bursts might be. But then you as an organization would have to try to work to kind of identify the events that you did internally, because we don't really have insight on that. Or
yeah, we have planned to there's a program festival around October. So
Gotcha.
we are planning a big event to
Gotcha.
to to show the projects our company. As you know, we have a bunch of developers, so they have some projects to share each other's, and we are planning to do these kind of events to advertising or just let the people to know there's a projects you can join. So we even built a website for that.
Okay.
So now we just prepare for it. So it looks like if we are planning this kind of event, we need to keep the track to know if we promote certain kinds of projects. We need to track the users, the audience, if they are just follow this the steps we design.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, and so you said that's in October.
Yeah.
So the idea would be to set up to determine what some of those metrics can be. Essentially, have the event and see the impact on the changes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, perfect. This is great. This would be great for agenda setting, by the way. This is something to really aim at. From your perspective, will the data be available to all, say, program managers in the departments, or is the data kind of available strictly to you and your team, and then you would talk to the program managers? See what I'm saying? Like what?
Okay. Now maybe my team can get the data, and I'm not sure if the project managers can get some benefit from the data. It's looked like from the project program manager perspective, they just want the program work on their project for the upstream or the project outside the department. They don't care. So nowadays we just want to encourage or inspire the passion of the programmer, because if they are doing inner source, it will help them to build the reputations inside of the community. I mean, it's the inner source community. So if someone's good at program, they should be found by these kinds of events. So basically, this is a rough thoughts in my mind.
Okay.
We'll just try to do some. We got some pilots projects, and I will devote my time to help them. But there's only 2 projects I'm working on, and there's about 10 projects we are planning to be bring up online, but I'm not sure if it can scale out quickly. So that could be my challenge.
Okay.
Is the obstacle to quickly scaling out just familiarizing yourself with the metrics and software available for scaling it out? and then educating your workforce?
Yeah, yeah. It's not just about the metrics. I think the metrics can bring the people some in the same page, but the skills are they still need to develop some skill set, especially working in the open source way. So it's not like I teach one or two projects, and then this project member will have other projects, but but this could be challenging for them to devote their times to do these kind of things.
Okay, this sounds really good. Other thoughts from people on this? I mean, this would be great for, I think, for us to work on. Do other people have thoughts on this particular issue? When's your event? October what?
It's October 24th.
Okay, so we have 2 months. Okay, sounds good. All right, cool. Are there other things that people, so Willem, I jotted that down. Are there other things that people would like to talk about on this call? We can definitely focus on inner sourcing and thinking through that, but are there other things that people would like to talk about on this call that might be useful? Good. All right. Okay. I had a few small updates. So one, we're still working on the translation of CHAOSS documents to Chinese, and so before we get into kind of that first agenda item, just wanted to give you an update that we're still moving forward with this. We're probably going to be paying to get some of this work done, but as we talked about in prior calls, we probably need a few people to double check the work, and Willem, you and I had talked about that.
Yeah.
So that's still kind of work in progress. We're going to aim at translating the metrics, I think, right off the bat, and then perhaps the website would be another candidate.
Hi Matt.
Yeah.
Is there any GitHub issues that we can follow?
Okay. Yeah, we haven't. I've just been trying to source a company that can do this, that I think can do it effectively first. So we haven't really opened up any GitHub issues at the moment, but we will, and I'll track those for you.
Okay. Well, once you open the issues, you can ping me or just add me.
Okay.
So
perfect. That sounds really good. And then Sean and I had kind of an ongoing thing. This is that last item about dependencies. This is just kind of CHAOSS project as a kind of a larger issue. One of the things that we don't really do in the CHAOSS project with respect to health yet, I mean, it's certainly something we think about, but is kind of systematically map dependencies. So thinking about health, not just of a particular open source project and the activity within the project, but also thinking about health at a dependency level or at an ecosystem level is another way to think about it. So this is something that if it's of interest to folks here, we can always talk about it here, but I think this is something that needs a little attention because I think it's important.
It looks like a supply chain thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. It actually would be less like open chain, more like what are the software dependencies for a particular project, and how do we understand the health of all of those interconnected dependencies.
Yeah. This is a very interesting topic because we use a lot of open source projects inside our company. So we have a team to look at it.
Okay.
But basically, there's a bunch of dependency management system just like Maven or a different language. They use different tools. So it could be a challenge for us to take care of them, all of them.
But I think there might be a difference in what Maven does is it's really kind of a build tool for Java, right?
Yeah.
And so that will give you a clear picture of the dependencies inside of a project in the context of that project.
Yeah.
And Java doesn't use package managers to the same degree that other languages do. So you're generally importing a library, and Maven probably could be used as a dependency manager. I can see that for Java. For many other languages, the dependencies are more of a spider web. For example, with NPM or Python, there are actual programs where you do NPM install or pip install. And when you install that package depends on other packages. So you inherit a set of dependencies that are somewhat invisible to you. I know Java libraries work somewhat differently. It's been a number of years, but so I can't speak authoritatively, but I don't know whether or not Maven will cover all of the dependencies for a Java project, especially if it has a web front end at the end of the day that is not written in Java, which is usually the case. If you're doing any kind of JavaScript on that project, you're definitely using package managers, and you probably have dependencies you're not aware of.
Yeah. Currently, I have a project. It has a front end and back end. The front end part is using AngularJS, and I took a lot of time to download the dependency. Especially,
I bet you did.
Yeah, it's looked like nightmare for me. So I guess this is a very big topic, and I'm not sure if we have a working group for this.
We don't. You're right, and it is. I agree. It's a just as based on this little conversation here, it's a huge topic.
I think it's a place the evolution working group could go, because the evolution working group has kind of done all of the basics at this point, and I think dependencies are they're kind of a logical step when it comes to looking at how a project evolves, and I think they're also a significant point of risk. For projects as well. So it doesn't matter to me what work group takes it on,
right?
But I think it's fair to say that this issue is becoming more and more prominent because it's the dependencies where the security holes come to play.
And to me, there seems to be a number of different groups that are trying to take this on, and so it'd be nice to kind of think systematically about what everybody is doing and where everybody is looking. Because GitHub does some of this work, right? In the sense that they give you the security concerns for dependencies in your repository. I put a link in there, deps.cloud. Has anybody seen that at all?
Deps.cloud.
I guess there's some commercial companies can provide this kind of service.
Yeah. And that's I think TideLift is the commercial company, or one of the commercial companies. But I think, as Sean has pointed out, TideLift is built on libraries.io, which doesn't give you the entire view of dependency structures.
Yeah, there's the package manager dependency structure, and then there's also the things that we import directly that are maybe not package managed. For example, in many cases, there are projects that people download from GitHub and incorporate, and those dependencies have to be identified kind of in the in the build process for a piece for a repo.
Okay.
So is there CHAOSS members talking about this dependency management or?
We've talked around it
Okay.
a number of times, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, Sean, do you know of any like concerted effort in the CHAOSS project to take this on?
There's a concerted desire.
Yes, I agree with the
to take
concerted
it on,
desire.
and I think it's probably. I don't know if I was to think of things that we should talk about in the board meeting next week. I think the strategy around how to address dependencies is important because it's come up in a lot of working groups. It's a complex problem, and we both of the software projects involve and it requires software to make understandable even. But both of the software projects within CHAOSS are pretty heavily committed right now. So we may want to consider, we just might want to bring it to the board and see if the board has some information, insights or ideas about perhaps encouraging companies that have this need to contribute resources to the software projects in CHAOSS to help us get through this, or if they have something they're using that we can connect to and possibly bring into the fold. There was also, I'll stop talking after this. There's also a suggestion from, gosh, I think her name is Sophia, but I apologize if I get it wrong. So yeah, Sophia Vargas, yesterday in the general call about the DevStats dashboard for Kubernetes is undergoing a major overhaul. And so there might be opportunity for collaboration between CHAOSS and Kubernetes and the DevStats group specifically. And she is trying to make that connection for us between yesterday and next Tuesday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily dependencies, but that's cool, right?
Well, what I think is the resources that are engaged in DevStats certainly have an interest in dependencies, and we may be able to join some sort of forces to get, to not have to be responsible for the technical work required to answer those really important questions. Like there might be something that we can work with them to build, and they already have corporate support for developers, so so there's opportunity, but it's undefined.
Gotcha. I think in that case, there's opportunity right around the dependency stuff plus other kind of CHAOSS metrics that aren't necessarily dependencies, but cool.
I gotta believe Kubernetes keeps a real close eye on their dependencies.
You'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So maybe, yeah.
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah. Hey.
I'm King. Hello.
Hey.
I'm sorry. I'm not delayed in the airport. Yeah, I'm bad network. So I heard about you talk about the dependency. At first I jumped in the CHAOSS project. I have opened an issue on the risk work group, and somebody told me the kids work talk about the dependency in the SPX project. Maybe we can talk about it with kids first.
Did you say with kids?
Kate.
Kate. Oh, right.
Yeah,
okay.
Kate, sorry.
Kate, yeah, no, sorry. Sometimes my ears.
Kate. Maybe my microphone problem.
No,
kids maybe research the dependence in the SPDX, the build of the materials. Yeah, she
has a keen interest in that, and I've missed the last few SPDX meetings, so I think you're right. The SPDX group is focused on that as well, and that meeting just fell at a time when I was having my garage partially demolished yesterday, and I couldn't call anyone.
I'm wondering, in the case of SPDX, right? they don't necessarily provide tooling, but they provide kind of the documentation by which you would represent the important information, right? The SPDX standard. And I'm wondering if, to your point, King, we could take a look at the SPDX spec and kind of see how they define dependencies. Because I know that it's something that you can track in the document, and that might help frame the way we think about dependencies. Because I'm guessing as dependencies, again, listening to people who do this on a more daily basis than I do, dependencies is a wide net. It's a big issue, and perhaps framing or at least starting the conversation by like we're just saying, listen, we're following kind of the SPDX approach initially to think about dependencies. That may not be a bad idea. Sean, have you talked to anybody at SPDX about dependencies?
Yeah, it's been about a month since I was in their meeting, but that's an active part of the next spec, and as he mentioned, it's a critical aspect of the creation of a software bill of materials. I think it's a primary consideration in the next SPDX release, if not the driving consideration.
Okay, because then again, because SPDX doesn't necessarily do tooling, like in that regard, I mean, maybe one of the things we could think about is like how Augur or Grimoire Lab could generate the data that would be beneficial to the SPDX document. It would just help frame things right out of the gate. That's all. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
yeah. I think the tooling is, so we have some SPDX tooling for the current spec, and I think evolving that tooling to this next spec will be a substantial effort in its own right.
Cool.
And so perhaps there needs to be a bill of materials virtual conference that involves the DevStats, CHAOSS, and SPDX projects, because all of us have a vested interest in this question.
That sounds intense.
Yeah, but I'm thinking we could, virtual conferences are now starting to seem easier than virtual conferences, because I don't want to leave my house.
Yeah, because you don't have to go anywhere. All right, cool. Yeah. All right, this is super helpful. So maybe kind of as an agenda setting item too, we could, as the dependency work moves forward, and we can continue to bring that work here and talk about it here as well, at least for parts of the meeting. All right, so could we, if you see on my screen here, I'd like to go back to the inner sourcing issue that Willem had brought up. We don't have we'll have the expert Daniel here in 2 weeks to talk about this a little bit, but one of the things that maybe we could talk through, and Sean, I'm going to lean on you a little bit because you've done some of this work with other folks, is when you think about this issue, metrics that kind of help not monitor, but maybe help reveal the growth of communities. What are the things that people are looking at, that help identify maybe?
The two things, and the two things that have been most discussed are pull request response rates and acceptance rates, and the growth or decline in the number of pull requests, and how older pull requests are accepted or declined. Because so in the example where a long running, like a pull request that's open for 6 months, is ultimately rejected mostly in a project, that's sort of a sign of a project ignoring something that they don't want to talk about because they're not going to accept it, and it's off-putting to new contributors. A project with a lot of where the slowest 20% of pull requests are ultimately merged, that just often indicates that the pull request is complex and requires more discussion before it's merged. New contributor retention is the second area that people have focused on. So both of those metrics are really focused on new contributor retention.
Can you help me kind of get these questions straight? I was trying to jot down what you had said.
Yeah.
So if the goal is to help metrics that can identify the growth of communities, is it what are the PR acceptance rates?
Yes, and particularly the PR acceptance rates of okay, let me edit this.
See, I was
Especially,
trying to,
oops, yeah.
okay. Does this, what you're writing, capture the question below too?
Yeah, it actually does.
Okay.
I rolled it into one because the acceptance, and it's also, I suppose another question is speed of response to new issues and new PRs, which is sort of a time to first response metric, because that is also strongly indicative of, you know, if new PRs and new issues get a comment that's not a bot within a day, that leads to people engaging in the community. If their issue or PR is ignored for a week or a month, then that is that's, you know, people are less likely to engage. You know, if they get that quick response, a discussion can form, and good things happen.
So one of the things I kind of hear you talking about, which is you're treating growth as not necessarily just an absolute number of people,
Right.
but growth in the sense of the people who are there, whether or not it's more people, the people who are there are becoming more committed to the success of the project.
And for a first-time contributor, that result of the pull request or that response to the question is, it's an indicator of whether or not they ultimately engage in the project. So from a community management perspective, speed of response helps you to build your contributor base.
Okay.
I totally agree with that. And here is a project I'm working with. They barely have pull request from outside. And today I found the key issue. They just they add a setting in the GitLab. Don't let the people fork the project. If the user if the PR contributor wants to do that, he has to click the fork button first. But if the project disable that, it's it's just a shut down the door. So today I just play with the contributor and try the process and found these issues. And I just told them to improve it. I had issues about that, and they did a quick fix for that. And I just share this experience. It looked like they just shut down the door for the people to do the contribution. But they don't realize it. So it looks like I need to let them put their feet in others' shoes.
And there are and always have been a genre of open source projects that are open source for some reason, but really don't want outside contributors. Twitter Bootstrap is a great example where 7 people contributed most of the code and 90% of their pull requests were rejected, right? So there's been projects historically that have a culture where they just don't want outside contribution. Like they want to share it openly, but quote unquote, they got it. And they don't want to manage a community. And I think that's a legitimate pattern of leadership and organization. And it's also really obvious when that's the case because you can look at those stats. So I agree with you. I'm pointing out sometimes the project owners actually are that way on purpose.
Yeah, I guess they don't have the experience, so they just assume there's a developer process just okay. But if the new guys come in, and if no one tried that way, they never find out this kind of thing.
Yeah, so, I mean, sometimes it's about control. Like we know, we know if we control this, that it'll be what we want it to be. And it's just like a laser focus, and whatever you people are trying to contribute, it's like the parent. I don't know if you get Charlie Brown in China, the cartoon. No. Have you heard of it? Okay, well, the parents in Charlie Brown, they're only ever heard going, you never know what they're saying. And so I think they hear them like that, those kinds of characters.
Oh.
So also in what Sean has provided here, I don't know if you can see those questions. Mm-hmm. It sounds like there's a desire to also understand who the people are, and it sounds like internal to the organization you can get that information.
Yeah. Because
you can understand what departments they're in. That would be
yeah.
Okay.
Because so we got their account and their employee number, so we can know which apartment he came from. So it's quite easy for us. But unlike the outside world, it looks like there's a bunch of people willing to do the contribution because they are passionate about that, or they feel they can make an impact on the in the community. But from the inside company, a lot of people feel they are too busy. They don't have the extra time to do the contribution for the other apartment. Yeah. Because the other apartments don't pay for them, and especially the project manager don't want to do that things. So I think that could be that is the key blocker for us.
Yeah, a lot of what you're describing is just it's a personal issues or like corporate cultural issues, right?
Yeah.
So, the metrics won't solve those problems.
Yeah. The metrics don't help them out, but it's good for me to talk because.
So Sean, on the questions that you have here, so a lot of what say like Augur or Grimoire Lab provides are these kind of aggregated views of like what Sean was talking about, like PR acceptance rates.
Yeah, and I would even say that these are things that are in the Augur community reports repo that reads the Augur database. Like we don't even have these things on our dashboard yet because they emerged from direct engagement, and we just found, again, because JavaScript front ends just take so much time, that building Jupyter reports and actually APIs that generate these visualizations with captions is far more efficient than dealing with JavaScript. So you would gather the data with Augur, and you'd use Augur community reports to generate these views.
So Sean, how hard is it? And this is just a question because you're the maintainer of Augur. So to take these aggregated views that kind of come from these questions and provide kind of a layer behind these aggregated views that gives you insight as to the names of the contributors who are, say, new contributors, or as I know in your reports you have like second time contributors, right?
Yeah.
How hard is it to do that next step?
We can definitely get the email addresses, and in most cases the names. So I would say that we've not done that, but it's just another query. And one of the things that we do is we try to resolve all, and I say try because sometimes it works, and sometimes if a person has not used their real email on GitHub, but if anyone's committed to GitHub, all of the emails they've committed with are recorded by GitHub, and we can map them to a single person. So that process, believe it or not, is like the longest running process on a Augur repo of any size because it requires so many updates to things. But once that finishes on a repo collection, we can definitely get the identity of the person. There just might be multiple identities until we do the resolution piece, and that we've taken at this point to running that after we've collected the initial data, because running it in conjunction with data collection, if you can imagine, you're editing the contributor on issues, pull requests, and commits while we're gathering data on issues, pull requests, and commits, and unifying the user IDs at the same time is like just logically problematic.
Gotcha.
That's too deep of an answer. I'm sorry, but
no, because
the answer is we have the data, and there's a common issue in any of this work is that people use. I myself have, I think, 15 different email addresses I've committed to GitHub with. So,
but in the case of, say, inner source, if you're using GitLab and you ask people to use a single identity.
I mean, in the case of GitLab, yeah, it will depend on actually their local Git configuration. So if they're committing to GitLab and to GitHub and to other things, and your Git identity can be set universally and usually is. So but their email address would be consistent then if they're using in that work. Presumably they'd be using the same computer. So. I don't think it would be a problem.
Because then it would be it sounds like what Willem is looking for is kind of that two-step process, which is the aggregate view of changes in community, and then kind of the under the hood look, the more detailed pictures, like who is filling up these bar charts. One of your bars.
Yeah, and I think that's a report, like ethically we should discuss, like, is that I think that's a report where we say we would build that report. We have the data. We would put a disclaimer at the top and say, this is intended solely for inner sourcing analysis,
100%.
or for corporately approved, open source analysis. This is not approved for, we don't want, I've avoided individual identification.
No, of course, with GDPR stuff and
just
privacy laws.
And I think just respect for the people on GitHub, because GitHub has exclusions in both of those laws, and we don't want to lose that exclusion, because if people stop providing some kind of identifier with a commit, that makes the whole thing a mess.
Okay, we're at time. So I will say in 2 weeks, when we meet back in September, Daniel will be on and help us talk through inner sourcing a bit more. So if we could take that time and really start thinking about what maybe needs to be set up internal to the organization, what's the data that you would capture, and kind of what the workflow would look like, I think that would be a good time. in a few weeks.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Daniel's discussion.
Yeah, I'm really appreciate for setting up this meeting. So it's gives me an opportunity to talk to the expert.
Awesome. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
It's good to see everybody. Nice
Yeah.
to see new people on the
Yeah.
call. Okay.
See you.
Bye.
See you. Bye bye.
All right.